Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. In this video, I'll be revisiting a video I did almost 2 months ago with the bargain buys for AFL Fantasy and SuperCoach. I'll be flicking across to SuperCoach around about halfway, 3/4 of the way through this video, as we know that with the different discounts and everything, it can become a totally different, game in a sense. There can be a lot of changes in value, especially I know that we have the likes of Luke Parker that's heavily priced in fantasy, but is very unders in SuperCoach. So we'll be talking about those, etc. So let's just jump into this here. So as you can see on the screen, I still have the heavily discounted, well, I mean not heavily discounted, just I mean the whole team is blank, as this is a strategy, and I think it also helps with just setting up these types of videos for you guys. But I think a lot of people are looking at let's look at the defenders first. We'll go through line by line of the heavily discounted players. You can basically take out the rookie price guys. We'll go through probably 400k is when you start to see some guys. Ari Showmaker, Josh Sin are probably the two that I'd look at this range that are probably bargain buys if they get that right halfback role, because we know the halfback role could contribute to potentially 80 or so points, 70 to 80 point range, and these guys are both priced. It's kind of hard to see it because they're both heavily discounted, but if we look at Jackson Archer, I think they both played enough games there. As you can see here, they're both priced around that 45 range, 46 range, give or take a little bit, as it's about 10,000 per point. You can see that with Showmaker priced at 494, and Josh Sin at 452. So they're both priced in around that 45 to 50 range. And that's probably 30 points of upside potential, 25 to 30 points there that they can get from that halfback role. So they're probably on the weaker end of this bargain buys, but certainly with how bad the backline is turning into with Coleman's injury, and how it may turn into a fact that we need to just go 700Ks in D4 and D5, one of them being Callum Mills per se, the other one may be Perryman, the other one may be even looking at Dale or stuff like that, and short at the D4 range. These type of guys like Showmaker and Sin really do pop up as potential big value options. 500k range, you have Kitty Coleman, who's pretty much all but confirmed out till gather round at least, given he is not running at the moment. Another guy that we need to probably look at and start to really track the progress of, and someone I'm definitely looking at the moment and just tracking his preseason notes about, is Sam De Koning. We know that he has the potential to be in that ruck role, and that ruck role will be a plus 30 or 40. We know he went 90 odd, I believe, or somewhere around that mark, 85, 90 in that ruck role, and he would do very similar. That's 30 points of upside there with Sam De Koning. Let me actually just do 400Kers there, and we'll clear it once we hit each new line. 600Kers, Weddle's doing a little bit more, but it feels like he's going to be more impact over mass disposal, so I don't really have anything in that range there. And I don't think there's anyone here that's really sort of catching the eye, I would say, and I don't think there was anyone in the 500k range either that really. Tom Brown could be an interesting one if he gets that role. Again, another guy that could be getting that kick-out role, and we know that if you get that major kick-out role, even at Richmond, which has Jaden Short there, he could get that 30-point boost needed. And I don't think there's anyone else really in the 400Ks that are good either. So skip over that. We did the 600Ks we talked about. 700 to 799K has obviously the big bracket of players in probably, that's probably it. Callum Mills, first guy, I think he's pretty much a lock now to play as at least a main midfielder, whether I think that's at least 50% CBAs, and that's going to be enough for him to be, I suspect, top 10 at least defenders, no matter what happens effectively. So he's going to be so much value. There's potential, given he's priced at about 74 as you see here, there's potential for him to be 35 points of upside, but I feel like it's more going to be around that 30 or so. And that 30 from his point of view is very damaging, given that that's going to be top of the line. And that's going to be the value. You're effectively getting an extra probably 10 points of upside just because you're saving a trade almost. And we know a trade is worth about 100k. or so. That's about the value I assign to it. So yeah, that's Callum Mills for you, and why he's so valuable if he does get that inside mid roll, which looks odds on. Every single report has been sort of trending to it, and yeah, I just really like it. I thought that he would play that halfback role initially, but then with the progress we've seen out of the likes of Ben Patton at Sydney, I think that role suits him, and that's sort of the role I wanted to see Mills in. So I guess that that fills that void of needing that one more lockdown, which does present value in Matty Roberts. We've looked at him before in terms of DFS, and I believe if you take out the not injury, but the Reading, I think he had a green vest as well. That gets him up to, I think, an 86, I want to say. We do know that there was some issues with him having scoring burst with the likes of Mills on the wing rather than McInerney, so that could be an intriguing thing there. So he will definitely be one that we watch in round 0, obviously, with Mills and a lot of these guys, actually, a lot of the value guys, they're on that round 3 bye, so it is a watch. And wait and see if you guys want any of these guys after their round 0 score, because not only do we have to monitor score, we have to monitor their role in particular. Then you've got Harry Perryman, another guy that I think can actually really go large. It seems to me that with Jordan De Goey having injury problems, Tom Mitchell having injury problems, that they're going to probably have to turn to Perryman in the midfield on ball, and I think that's probably a really good solution there. And also, I think that's probably why he moved across as well to Collingwood, as he probably wanted more on-ball time, as I think he hasn't really been getting it at Collingwood. Let me actually use DFS for this, because I'm not too well-versed on Perryman compared to other guys there. But if he is getting on-ball, I think you will see a big jump there. Let's just look at him when he actually gets CBAs in a few games that he's actually gotten CBAs. You'll see, I think, a fair jump in terms of point scoring, and we're looking at basically any game that he gets CBAs in for fantasy. He averaged 88 any game he got over about 25-30% in CBAs, so there definitely is a value there. And I think with Collingwood, I think that there will be value in that midfield there, so that's about 15 points of upside, so we'll have to see how he goes, but he could be that sort of logjam that you get 10-15 points of value early. You get that sort of I guess I'm trying to say about 100k or so very quickly, and then you just speed dial him straight up to a Whitfield, a Zorko, or someone off that. Well, that would be the early buy, so that would have to be a Flanders or a Whitfield. You get them off quickly to one of those guys because they have that different buy compared to the round 3ers. But we'll just have to wait and see about what he scores in round 0. And I don't think there's anyone else really worth noting in the 700k range. 800k range, again, very close to the sort of, I wouldn't even say they're bargains at that point, because short, we're talking about probably 15 points of upside, 17 points of upside to his career high. That's probably not really value. And I don't think there's anyone else in the defender line, so I'll just knock a couple of these guys off here just so I don't go over the value point or the team value salary point. Then we go to midfielders, and we'll start down in the 400k range, as there's going to be some people. Erasmus and Marek will talk in the forward line segment. O'Driscoll, definitely a guy that I could see getting a run at it. I don't remember the exact role he's been training at, but just looking at this, he's priced at 43, averaged 50.5, which includes a 79. If you look at his scoring, I think when he isn't the sub, I think you'd find he's averaging around about that 75 or so. I clicked on Aiden, not Nathan. Let's switch this up a little bit. Nathan O'Driscoll, there we go. And you'll see, I think when he gets the, look at that, non-sub minutes here, and you'll see in the AFL, he does average pretty good numbers here. 69.8 from 8 games. There's definitely some upside there. And these are going back to his like almost rookie year, including a lot of that, where he was also, I think, playing on wing, and I don't think he's necessarily got that wing role per se. But yeah, you can even see down here, looking at this here, he averages in 20 games, 65. He's priced at 43. That's 22 points of upside just there, and I think he's going to do even better than that. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's 30 points of upside if he gets into the side. And Ed Allen and Sheldrick are, and was Nevitt, and Nevitt's probably the last guy I want to flag in this segment here. Yeah, that looks in the 400K is here. Ed Allen, we saw last game of the year, 87. I think much to the same of Perryman. They need a fix in there for that third and fourth on baller for Collingwood. And Ed Allen's definitely a name that's been popping up in preseason from what I've seen from all the reports from Collingwood training. And so, yeah, I think priced at 43, he'll definitely be a guy that could easily do that. We've seen the 87 there last year. I think he's a guy that could easily go plus 30 there and plus 30 in that sort of M6 slot as we're looking at. These are sort of the M6 guys. That's pretty good value there. Angus Sheldrick, similar thing. He's been the star probably alongside Mills in the Swans pre-season, especially in that midfield. And he should be getting that fourth or fifth on ball for the Swans, given that they do have Chad Warner and also Isaac Heaney that spend a little bit more time forward than most midfielders. You can kind of create that fifth on ball that I've been talking about. Callum Mills potentially going into defence a little bit can also create that. So that should help out Angus Sheldrick, and hopefully he gets that the nudge there to be that on-baller as well. And then everything we've heard out of Geelong's really positive for Mitch Nevitt, and so he could potentially be a guy that we look at here because, yeah, 4 games, 41.3 average for him last year. I think he's a guy that can take that next step, especially with them. They do have an aging midfield. They always are slightly aging, so they do need a refresh there. And I think Mitch Nevitt's going to be that guy that definitely breaks through this year. We've heard it from a lot of the content creators from Geelong that he is the one that they're most impressed about. If we go to the 500k range, it's Isaac Cumming, I think, is the only real one, and probably Cam McKenzie, I think, is another guy that we've heard some positive reports about, but it's not as, I guess, flavorful as a lot of the other guys, up a little bit higher in terms of price point. But Isaac Cumming, I was a lot more hot on him early in the preseason. I think he's going to get sort of that wing halfback role, and it's kind of a little bit more versatile than we probably want. And so for that reason, and especially because there's that wing element involved, we know wingers don't tend to score that well. You know, the second highest scoring winger I think was Josh Akos at 94. We obviously have Gordon, but he was playing on ball as well for a fair chunk of it, 25% or whatever, or 30% on ball minutes, and a high tog anyway. I don't think Cumming can do that, so that sort of limits him a little bit, and I feel like that kind of limits him to around about that 90 or so, which is still plus 34, which is really good. But 90 as a high is a lot lower than sort of Peatling can do, or some of these other guys that are 15 points cheaper, like we saw a bunch at break even of 43, 44. Those guys only have to do 75, which is a lot more achievable for a guy just getting on ball and getting minutes, because we saw Sheldrick in this almost rookie year. I think it was 2023, so a couple of years ago now. It was his second year. He went and blasted a 5-game stretch of 86 against, I think 2 of them were against Geelong and Brisbane, who were in the final series that year. So just shows that those type of guys that are really in the price in the 40s can do damage. Cam McKenzie, pretty much the same focus. He'd have to go 90, and I just don't see it in that Hawthorn midfield. I think he gets a starting slot in that midfield getting CBAs, but I just don't see him jumping that 30, 35 that you kind of need in this slot. I feel like he goes 70, 75, but that's just not enough, as he's not really that main ball winner. He seems to be that really good user by foot. I missed the 600k range here. Peatling is probably the guy that we need to talk about, and then Hollands, and then also Sardis and Windsor. And I'll start clearing out a couple of these guys here just because. A couple of guys that I'm not too, I guess, so high on a little bit, and then we'll put Cummings up here so that we can put more guys on here, as we still have the 700Ks that I want to talk about as well. So, starting with Sardis is probably the way to start. All reports here that he is training with the A side in the on-ball brigade, especially with Dylan Shield moving to half-back, which can sort of affect Sardo Hooley's time. So that should really help him out. And price at 58, we know has to make that huge jump, probably a plus 30 to about a 90 or so. 85 to 90 is probably the range that we need out of him, because you can get really good value out of these other guys. So yeah, that's why I'm a little bit concerned about Elijah Sardis. And so I'm probably not going to go there, but all reports really good. And we do obviously get round 0, if I'm correct, him against Gold Coast, and he does have that round 4 bye, which is a little bit annoying, but also it's offset because it's not the major bye. Caleb Windsor, another guy that I just don't think can really make that jump again. Much the same we'll say about Ollie Hollands, and why I'm sort of actually starting to favour the 400k midfield guys, because they do generally stand out. Windsor, I really like the change for him. I think he's really good off the wing itself, but can be sort of lost at that half forward spot. But moving a little bit down back, I thought it could go to Lindsay, this sort of half back role, but seems like Windsor's getting it. But that could be old intel at that point. But he looks a guy that probably has 15-20 in him, up towards that sort of 75 or 80. But I don't think he's going to go that up to that 90 that we need. So I wouldn't be probably touching him compared to others, given that he could still get a little bit of wing time. Then we get to Peatling. I think this one is more of a slam dunk than most of the other guys getting on ball minutes. Whether he gets full on ball minutes and spends a little bit of time on the wing, but I'd rather on ball minutes compared to like halfback / wing. So I really like Peatling. I think he can go. We've seen historical numbers suggest that he can go plus 30 or so when he actually wasn't playing as a sub for the likes of the GWS Giants. So let me just show you guys that here on DFS, and you'll see that we'll go here. We'll even include the finals run that he had. He had a stinker in one of the games of 33, but if you were to just include every other game that he played for GWS, 86.1 in 12 games outside of the vest. If you just take out this stinker that he had, or the games that he had less than sort of that 50% on ball, that goes to 9 games, 92.2. That's the plus 30 that you need there. And I think at Adelaide, he could get some really good on ball minutes. So I'll be intrigued about this as well. And I think he's a guy that could easily go that 90-95 and be that real good M5 selection. And then Ollie Hollands, I'm just worried that the Newman role, gets split between him and Doherty, or him and someone else, and they sort of share points and they both go. And I know Doherty's been training virtually everywhere, but I just have a feeling that they could split potentially that 30-40 points that Newman sort of has, and split it in half, both of them, that are, I think Doherty's priced about 75. If, say, Hollands takes 25 points and Doherty takes 15, suddenly they're both in and around that sort of 85 to 90 range and not really as valuable. They're not going to be a strikeout pick, but they're not going to be a home run type of selection that you can really get out of these guys. So that's why I'm a little bit cold on Ollie Hollands at the moment. 700Kers, you've got Clayton Oliver, Will Day, Sam Doherty. I think that's a bit, and then you've got Chera. So let's get rid of probably Ollie Hollands, I reckon, there, as he's probably the one that's probably not as high on compared to others. And I don't think there's anyone else here that's really being spoke about. Maybe a little bit Dylan Shield priced at 75. If we get a good round 0 score, you could potentially go there, but I don't think I will. Will Day, the round 4 bye actually probably helps him a little bit comparative to other guys in the early rounds, that he'll get that price jump quick, but he's going to be offset and there won't be as much problems with his bye. So that's probably a good thing. Just worried that he can't actually reach that full potential that we've seen in the past. So will be interesting, but we get that round 0 look. I'm more inclined to go the really cheap guys there and go for something different in the back line, I reckon, is probably the way I'm looking at currently going. Clayton Oliver, I think this is a slam dunk pick because of historical value, and obviously it could blow up, but high ownership, so you're not really going to be too badly hurt if he does go wrong, comparative to other pods if they go wrong. And this is why I'm probably one of those people that likes a really vanilla side and being able to trade into guys, because I really like to be able to look at actual seasonal data rather than sort of the past things, as clubs do change a lot in off season. So I just think following the crowds, Clayton Oliver has a lot of pros here, and he's been training really well in preseason, so I really like the look of that. Adam Chera, I'm not so high on him, to be honest, comparative to others probably. Round 12 bye as well is a little bit annoying. I know that DR did a really good interview with the winner of last year's SuperCoach, just saying that don't really regard the round 12 bye as much and just pick the value options. Yeah, you can do that, But if Chera is the same value or same potential upside, say he's plus 20 upside, I'm going to pick a guy that is on a different buy comparative to him if he has the same amount of upside. So that's how I sort of look at it. And I just don't think he's the out and out. He's not blinking at me saying value, value, value comparative to other guys here. I would even put Will Day over Chera at the moment. And I'm not too hot on Will Day. Sam Doherty, I think just the news we've heard out of Carlton has really diminished what I see out of him. So I'm not going to be touching Sam Doherty at the moment. Definitely some conversations with the likes of some other Carlton or some Carlton fans itself that are also on Twitter as well. It's probably steered me away from that. And there's no one else here that's really screaming bargain buys at that point. I think these all are guys that are under sort of that primo price bracket, etc. There, let me just get rid of a couple of these guys. Then the ruck line, this is probably going to go really quick because the ruck line is the ruck line, and I can probably almost do this. Ari Boyd's a rookie, so can't really include that. There's probably no one in the ruck line, to be honest with you. Can't include the likes of Ting English because he's a primo still. Jordan Sweet, we sort of have seen what he can do. I don't think he takes that next step. Shaw Darcy, probably one of the only guys. He's injured. Tom De Koning, probably almost primo price anyway, but yeah, he's probably the one guy that you could almost include in this category alongside Flynn, who I'll scroll down to in a second, as we're just seeing if he gets solo ruck time or not, and that's probably all rookies. Sam Draper's probably sharing ruck, I feel like, with Brian, so I don't like that either. Dusty Cameron's full price, and Matt Flynn's probably the last guy that in this section to talk about. Price at 61. The ruckman we know, even if they're really poor, could probably do a 70, 75, 80 anyway. And I feel like with that number one ruck, he could do that. It's just a big question of can he keep his body actually fit. But we've seen in the last couple of days that West Coast haven't actually gone with a number one ruck sort of set and, well, not set and forget, but sort of already set in the season. So if we look at this and look at his games when he actually played as a number one ruck, he averaged 68 from 3 games. When he did this longer term a couple years ago in 2023, and we look at his ruck time there, and we actually look at games where he got, you can just look at games here itself. We'll just do this. He's sort of averaging mid-70s, so there is 10 points of upside. It's not massive, but there is some points of upside there with the likes of Matt Flynn. So he's probably the only ruck that falls into that category anyway, unless Samson Ryan gets that full-time ruck role if Nank goes down. Then we go to the forward line, which probably has the most obvious selections there. We'll go to is there anyone under 300k range? I don't think so. They're all still rookie price there. 400k range, Erasmus, Marek as well is probably there, and that's about it. Maybe Hugo Garcia and Jack Silvani, we'll just talk about those guys. So Neil Erasmus, we've seen his waffle numbers. We've highlighted them all before. This is probably the guy needing to be talked about a little bit just because if he gets the role, it's just going to do really, really well. Priced at 42. We've seen him do it in the past before as well. At AFL level, I think he averaged, I want to say, non-sub affected a 70 a couple years ago. Let me just double check that for you guys there. He averaged 72.8 adjusted in 2023 from 14 games, which would have been marked down if we go to 2023 to a solid 6 games, 74.5 is what I've got it at. So yeah, definitely a guy to consider there. And last year he even had a -1. That just shows how annoying that year was for him, but definitely could be a guy that we look at as he had no full games in 2024, sorry. So definitely a guy to just look at and wonder if he can take that next step and get into that Freo midfield, but it's quite hard. Then you've got Ryan Marek playing off half-back at the moment for West Coast. That could potentially be 30 points of upside, 35 points of upside. We just need to see it, probably in the preseason games, etc., but definitely a guy to watch. Hugo Garcia, with all the injuries going down, it's chaos at St Kilda. So there's going to be guys that pop up in a value. Hugo Garcia is just a watch there, and he also does have a pretty decent buy with the round 13. That's the good buy. So, he wouldn't be in the side there, but he could easily, Garcia, and I know I had him last year, he could easily pop up for a 70 here, a 65 there, and suddenly you've just got cash 10 coming from it. If we look at him last year in non-sub affected games, He had a 54.3 and he is priced at a 41. So there is some value there. Probably not the biggest value, I would say, but definitely some upside there. And he definitely was performing a lot better in the VFL here. You can just see when he, after that stint in the AFL, he went back to VFL and averaged a solid 110.1 from 9 games, so he can score. And then we move on to Jack Silvani moving to that half-back line for Carlton in all the injury chaos and everything. He probably does a 65 or so, which is 20 points of upside, but not too much. Then we move to the 500k bracket. This is where you get a lot of value, I'd say, in terms of Bailey Smith, who's probably 40 points, 50 points. Is probably the biggest mid-pricer value that we have here. And he's a guy that could be a keeper the whole way through. Obviously, we'll watch his round 0 to see if we can potentially skate by without him. But I have a feeling that we won't be able to. I feel like he'll go 80 or 90 in round 0, and that'll be enough to kickstart that cash gen. 75 gets him up 14k, so an 80 probably gets him up 20k or so, and that starts that cash gen so quickly as that gets that break even down into the 30s, and he starts gaining 30, 40k per week for an 80. Then we move on to Caleb Daniel, another guy that's probably the most value in Fantasy and also SuperCoach as well, as he's basically rookie price in SuperCoach. But yeah, break even of 50. He could easily do pretty much what I was saying with Bazza Smith, but he won't have that early buy. So yeah, really happy to have him there. And in the 600k bracket, sorry, I misplaced there. You have got Sanders and no one else at the moment that I'm too high on, I would say. Sanders, this is just all Adam Treloar injury based. I feel like he's a guy that can take that next step. We've seen he had some sub games as well last year where that probably, I think, cooked his average up to about a 70 if you remove them. I think he can take that next step. And 20 points in the forward line is a lot more valuable than 20 points in the midfield line. So, yeah, it's definitely, there's different value almost settings. Oh, not settings, but different values in terms of which line you're on, as it's going to be harder to find value in the forward line outside of the obvious 3 than it is in the midfield if you do take out like a Clayton Oliver, etc. There's some obvious ones there, but for the less obvious ones, it's harder to find value in the forward line, I feel like, than the midfielders. And that's just role dependent. And I don't think there's anyone in the 600k bracket that I really look at. 700Ks, you've got a McRae, and then I'd argue you'd look at maybe a Matt Kennedy. Matt Kennedy at 77.1. If Treloar's injury is extended, one of him or Sanders will get that midfield role, and that he's scored pretty well, Matt Kennedy, in the midfield role. But we also know that that midfield role can be a little bit, he could also play forward, and Sanders probably not so as much, and Sanders has been really doing well in pre-season training, so Kennedy could easily just come in and play that sort of Jack McRae role that was there. So that'll be intriguing to watch. Jack McRae, he's pitched it on ball in pre-season. He's the only fit Saints guy that's of value probably almost at this point. So yeah, 18 games, 71.4. He probably does plus 25, 30 and becomes a top 6 forward, which probably saves us a lot more value, especially when we consider Caleb Daniel, Bailey Smith as well in that lot as well. There's 3 or 4 of them at least that are massive value there. And when we're getting to the 800k guys, you're talking about 10 points of upside, which isn't as much. Then quickly, let's move over to the, and we'll get rid of this, and we'll go to the defenders here for SuperCoach. We'll sort of get it under 400k or so, and then we'll just go ownership because that'll help us out a little bit. Callum Mills, we talked about. Travalia Reid, Coleman, no. All these guys are basically rookie priced if they aren't in here. We talked about Sin as well, and I think that's about it for all the guys under 400k or so. Dode's an interesting one. I don't know what his price was in Fantasy, but 48, he could easily do 30 or so quite easily. Let's actually just check what Dode's price was in in Fantasy. Sorry, Dode priced at a 39. He could be interesting in Fantasy if he gets away, but he could easily play that lockdown role, and I don't really like that that's interchangeable there. And no one else here that I really think is worth mentioning too much. Midfield under the same line here, talking about guys, and I want to actually just do this so I can get rid of the sort of rookie-ish price guys. Let's get to 200k there, so we get rid of a lot of the rookie guys. Midfield, we're all talking about the same guys here. Pretty much Guthrie, another guy, don't know what he's priced at Fantasy, but no in SuperCoach he's definitely unders. 730k, 71 in Fantasy, but priced at about 55 or so. 52 in SuperCoach. There's definitely value there if he gets himself on the park. But like I was saying, I think he never takes this roll over from him. It's had an 83, 91 in the past type of area, 113 as well, 2020, 103. So he's done a lot in the past if we look at his career stats. SuperCoach here, you can see it. For those, everyone, 64, 83, 99, 113, 103, 76, 63, etc. So he's done even 97 back in 2015. So he's definitely a guy that could pop off and be value at 52, but I just don't think we'll see it. But we do obviously get the opening round for him, and I don't think there's anyone else really. And then in the ruck line, it's basically Matt Flynn, and then no one else in that range. I did include the upper bound guys at 4. I cut it off at 400k, but it's sort of a lot of guys that are, I would say, not at 400k plus. That's sort of 80 anyway. That's sort of nearing enough the top end. And then probably the last guy, that's only guy that I really have to talk about in this section is probably Luke Parker in the SuperCoach, because he has that sort of, it's not discounted from in the SuperCoach scoring mechanism, but he's been discounted in the SuperCoach scoring, but not in the Fantasy, and that's why he's at such different price points. He's at like 82 or something in Fantasy, but only 64 in SuperCoach. And with George Wardlaw going down, he's definitely a guy that I could see jumping and scoring 85 or so. And that'll be plus 20. That'll be a really good thing. And then we just jump him straight to someone. Maybe we have a really bad Bailey Smith game, and then you can jump him straight to Bailey Smith or something after rounds 5 or 6, given that they may be the same price or something, and you've already got an extra round out of him, etc., an extra 20, 30, 40 points, etc. I don't know exactly. But Luke Parker, sad to see him in the likes of a North jumper, but it sounds like he's going to be a guy that could be interesting. When he does play on ball, you see these seasons back to back years of 100 plus, even a 111 in there where it was top 6. But yeah, 108, 111, 103, 105, 106, 108, 103. So yeah, he's done it before. Even a 70 in all of the chaos of last year. I just do like this option. If we do see chaos happen and do need some more cheapies in the SuperCoach, I guess in our forward lines, etc., just to cover off and get the rookies off field, or to get us down to one rookie, etc. But anyway, that is the video there covering the Fantasy and SuperCoach mid prices bargain buys for the update for February. We have about a month to go until the season, 31 days until the first lockout, so we're in pretty good position at the moment. But anyway, if you did enjoy that video, remember to like and subscribe, turn the notification bell on so you know when I upload. If you are listening on Spotify, give me a follow and a rating over there, and I will see you guys back here tomorrow for some more updates or some more videos. So I'll see you guys then. Bye guys.